Hey, sweeties. Okay, so there's just something about those male leads who act like the whole world is their kingdom and we're all just living in it. You know the type. Super confident, possessive, sometimes annoyingly arrogant, but somehow we can't stop watching them. Like, why are we even rooting for them? But here we are, totally obsessed. Today, I'm talking about the top 8 dominant male leads in BL. The ones who don't just ask for love, they claim it like it's their birthright. They're the kings of "you're mine" and "no one else can have you," and honestly, we eat it up every single time. So, if you love a little possessiveness, some over-the-top jealousy, and maybe a dash of "how dare you breathe near my man," you're in for a treat. Let's count them down, because these guys are messy, dramatic, and we wouldn't have it any other way. So let's start with Ark from Perfect 10 Liners. He is such an interesting character. He's not about jealousy in the typical sense, but possessiveness? Yeah, that's where his true feelings for Arm start to show. At first, he comes off as arrogant and jerky towards Arm, like he's just treating him like any other student. Arm is this new first-year student, and Ark is his mentee's mentee, so you'd expect a little distance. But what's clear is that Ark's got this hidden side to him that he's not letting anyone see. It's not just that he's giving Arm a hard time. There's this undertone of possessiveness that comes out in how he acts toward him. Ark doesn't show his feelings easily. He's got that typical arrogance, like he doesn't care about much, especially not someone like Arm, but you can tell something's brewing underneath. The whole situation changes when Ark and Arm get into an accident, and suddenly Ark's world is shaken. That's when we finally start to see how much he really cares about Arm. His fear is so raw and real, and you get a glimpse of the depth of his feelings. It's not just about being a mentor anymore. It's about not wanting to lose someone he's grown attached to, even if he's been hiding it all along. Then there's Sasaki from My Personal Weatherman. He's such a character. Like, he's ridiculously possessive and jealous. He doesn't want Yo leaving the house, talking to anyone, or even breathing near someone else. It's so over the top that you'd think people would hate him for it, but somehow fans still love him. How does he pull that off? Maybe it's because he's just unapologetically himself. Sasaki doesn't sugarcoat anything. He's arrogant, dominant, and acts like Yo belongs to him. But at the same time, he's got this weird charm that makes you look past all of that. It's like he's so sure of himself that you can't help but be drawn in. And oh, Pete from Dark Blue Kiss, he's such a gem, right? Like, you can't help but love him, even though he's got his own share of possessiveness. He's definitely not as over the top as Ark or Sasaki, but Pete still has that jealous streak. You can tell when he's not happy with how things are going, especially when it comes to his relationship with Cow. There's this mix of sweetness and protectiveness in him that feels super real, though. He's not the type to throw tantrums, but you can definitely feel when he's bothered by something. What's great about Pete is that he's just so genuine. He doesn't try to hide how he feels, and even though he gets jealous, it's more about him wanting to protect what he cares about rather than controlling the situation. And let's be real, his softness and care for Cow are what really make him stand out. He's the kind of guy who's not afraid to show affection, but he's also not going to stand by if he feels like something's off. He's a bit more chill than some of the other possessive characters, but still, there's something so endearing about Pete's way of loving Ko. It's not aggressive or overbearing, it's just real, and that's what makes him such a great character to watch. Also, Payu from Love in the Air definitely got that whole possessive dominant thing down, doesn't he? Unlike some other characters who get jealous, Payu's possessiveness is a bit more subtle, but it's clear he wants to be in control. It's not about being insecure or reacting to someone else. It's more like he just expects to have things his way and has no problem making it known. He's that guy who doesn't need to throw a fit, but you can tell when he's got his sights set on something or someone. He's not about to back down. He's all about power and control. And that's something that makes his relationship with Rain so interesting to watch. It's like Payu doesn't want to share his space, his attention, or his time. There's this dominance in how he carries himself that makes it clear he's used to being in charge. And he wants to maintain that, especially with Rain. Payu's not the type to demand things outright, but he's got this quiet strength that shows through in how he handles situations. It's kind of wild to watch because he doesn't have that chaotic possessiveness some leads have. He's calculated and he knows exactly how to get what he wants without making a scene. His dominance isn't about controlling Rain's every move, it's more about asserting his place and making sure his presence is felt. It's a little intense, but there's something captivating about how effortlessly he does it. We also have V from Love Mechanics. Yeah, he's one of those characters who starts off pretty arrogant and honestly a bit of a jerk, especially toward Mark. At first, he doesn't really seem to care much about Mark's feelings and is all about his own ego. He kind of acts like Mark's just another guy to mess around with, which makes sense given how his character is built. He's got that I'm better than you vibe, and he doesn't really hide it. He even sees Mark as someone he can just get what he wants from, until things take a turn. Then, after they sleep together, everything kind of shifts for him. It's like the whole arrogance cracks, and he's dealing with a whole different set of emotions that he wasn't prepared for. And what's interesting is that his possessiveness really starts to show after that. It's not just about him being attracted to Mark. Now it's about wanting to keep him, wanting to make sure no one else can have him. He starts to act like Mark is his, and it feels like his way of dealing with the emotions he's not sure how to handle. V's possessiveness definitely becomes more obvious, but it's tied up with his own struggle to figure out how to actually care for someone without being all about control. Next, Kin from Kin Porsche. Wow, this guy is something else. He's incredibly possessive and jealous, but somehow people are still drawn to him. Like, he's the type to get mad if Portia even looks at someone else. He doesn't want him out of his sight, and honestly, it can get a little scary how much control he tries to have. You'd think that would turn people off, but no. Fans still love him. How does he manage that? Maybe it's because Kin's just so confident in his own skin. He's used to being in charge, and when it comes to Porsche, he's not afraid to show it. He's got this mix of intensity and arrogance that makes you think, this guy's a lot, but at the same time, you can't stop watching him. Yeah, he can be over the top with his jealousy, but somehow it just makes the whole thing even more interesting. He's like this ticking time bomb, and you're just waiting to see what happens next. A, from Love by Chance, this guy has a serious possessive streak, doesn't he? He's all about keeping Pete close, and honestly, it can be a bit much at times. It's not just the regular kind of jealousy. This dude wants Pete all to himself, and he's not shy about showing it. Like, there's no subtlety with A. He'll make sure everyone knows Pete is his, and you can tell he's the kind of guy who's not comfortable with anyone even looking at Pete the wrong way. What's interesting, though, is that even though he's got this possessive vibe, it's clear that A genuinely cares about Pete. He just has this need to keep him safe and under his control. It's like he feels like he has to protect Pete from the world. And sometimes it goes a little too far. You can tell that A's intentions aren't bad, but he definitely crosses some lines when it comes to how far he's willing to go to make sure Pete doesn't slip away. It's tough because on one hand, you kind of get where he's coming from. He really cares about Pete and doesn't want to lose him. But on the other hand, it's not healthy to be that possessive. It feels like AE doesn't know how to let go and trust Pete to make his own decisions. There are moments where you just want to tell him, dude, chill out a bit. But then you can't really blame him for being so protective. Finally, Ming from my stand-in. This guy is intense. His possessiveness and arrogance are at another level. It's not just that he's into Joe. It's like he feels entitled to him. He acts like Joe belongs to him. And it's that sense of ownership that drives him to do some pretty terrible things. He hurts Joe so badly to the point where it leads to Joe's death. And you're just left there thinking, how could someone be this blind to what they're doing? His arrogance makes him believe that he can get away with anything, that he can control the situation and control Joe without thinking about the consequences. But then, here's the kicker, Ming gets a second chance. He's given an opportunity to redeem himself. But that dominant and possessive side of him doesn't just disappear. Even though he wants to change, there's this part of him that's still the same. Still thinking he has a right to Joe, still acting like his feelings and needs come first. And that's what makes Ming so complicated. He wants to make things right, but he doesn't know how to let go of that entitlement. You watch him try, but you can still see those old habits, that need for control, creeping back in. It's almost like he can't fully shake off the person he was before. His dominance and possessiveness are so deeply ingrained that even when he's trying to do better, it feels like it's never really enough. And that's what makes Ming's journey so painful to watch. He's constantly battling with himself, knowing he messed up, but struggling with the same flaws that led him to hurt Joe in the first place. And that's it, sweeties. These are just a few of the possessive BL characters that keep us hooked, but I know there are plenty more out there. Everyone probably has their own favorite, so if yours didn't make the list, drop it in the comments. I'd love to hear who you think deserves a spot. Oh, and if you enjoyed this little chat, don't forget to give the video a like, subscribe for more BL goodness, and maybe even share it with your fellow BL fans. See you next time.